In terms of sound development, your tone development, the number one thing you can do is listen. And through listening, you ultimately determine what you think good and bad actually sounds like. Now, as far as there being a more active thing to do as opposed to a passive listening, is understanding this one concept that dominates all of your practice routines in terms of sound development. And that is understanding pressure. Pressure in terms of embouchure pressure and pressure in terms of air pressure. And the biggest difference between classical mouthpieces and jazz mouthpieces are basically understanding pressure. A classical saxophone mouthpiece with its smaller tip opening generally has much more pressure that is involved with it in order to get the desired classical saxophone sound. Where a jazz mouthpiece is going to have a more open tip, it's going to be more free-blowing relative to that classical saxophone mouthpiece in order to get the desired tone. This is somewhat of a generalization, but it mostly applies 99% of the time. So understanding how to manipulate pressure is a huge component of developing your sound on saxophone. So typically with a classical saxophone mouthpiece, you have physical attributes of the mouthpiece that lean toward it having a higher amount of pressure because you have this low tip opening. A low tip opening is going to give you a lot of control over articulation, vibrato, etc. So thick side rails, a thick tip rail, a smaller chamber on the inside, all of these things contribute to a higher amount of pressure, but given with the low tip opening, you can balance that with control. Another component, in my opinion, the most important component of every mouthpiece isn't really the tip opening. It's going to be the facing length. The length of the facing actually determines how much of the thickest part of the reed that you will engage. The thicker the reed is, the more energy, the more pressure it takes to actually get the reed to move. So if you are engaging the thickest part of the reed when you're playing, because of the way the mouthpiece is designed, then this is also going to increase the amount of pressure you need to apply to get the reed to move or to develop your sound, to create a sound. And typically with a jazz mouthpiece, you generally wind up with a medium to short facing. Even though you can have a long facing on a jazz mouthpiece, you typically balance that with the tip opening and strength of your reeds. So let's talk about embouchure. Typically, your classical saxophone embouchure involves the lower lip over the bottom teeth. This is a high pressure embouchure that's used to combat the high pressure mouthpiece. If it takes a lot of energy to get something to move, you have to apply a lot of energy to it. Likewise, if you have a lip out embouchure, this is going to be synonymous with a low pressure system or a low pressure mouthpiece. So I'm going to play some various clips of me using different kinds of mouthpieces, and then you can get an idea for how it sounds. So check this out. I wanted to find a live recording of me playing, so I found this thing from Halloween back in 2006. I played at this show at Cedar Point. Check this out. Ultimately, you are going to have more control using a lip out embouchure as opposed to the lip or the standard saxophone embouchure. This is going to give you a lot more variety in how you can use vibrato and how you can use dynamics, because your embouchure is ultimately going to cover more surface area of the reed. When you can cover more surface area of the reed, you can determine how much of the facing length you engage when you play. I'm always talking about the benefits of using a lip out embouchure, but it takes time, and you generally just do it with long tones and forcing yourself to stick with it, because very often you want to just go back and forth, and you can't do that. So one of the most important things that I talk about when using this lip out embouchure is decreasing the tip opening of your mouthpiece and decreasing the strength of your reeds, because now we're going to engage the thicker part of the reed. That's going to make up for the pressure that we feel like we've lost, because usually you put like a low tip opening mouthpiece with a thin reed and bam, you basically just seal the reed to the mouthpiece. And people complain about this a lot. And then you see me with these videos and I play these 4 or 5-star mouthpieces and I'm playing 4-octave scales. Like, man, how is he doing it? I'm using a lip out embouchure, which gives me control to manipulate embouchure pressure much more broadly. I can engage the thickest part of the reed, which can give me the kind of pressure that I need in order to be able to play with a full range, in order to reach and exceed that minimum amount of air pressure in order to get a high quality sound. Okay. This is also the main reason, at least in my opinion, why I feel like soprano saxophone is the most difficult of the common saxophones to play. Because you have such a small mouthpiece, using your embouchure, you are very quick to engage the thickest part of the reed, which can cause a lot of pressure to build up, and it can make it very difficult to control the instrument. I'm always looking for a soprano saxophone that has an extreme balance throughout the range. On a lot of soprano saxophones, when you play above a high G sharp, a separate pressure mechanism, the other octave, actually engages and completely feels different from the amount of pressure that was throughout the rest of the instrument. I shy away from these saxophones. There is no rhyme to reason. It's not like on low quality professional soprano saxophones, you get like bad pressure, and then it's nothing like that. With the top of the line soprano saxophones that I've played, that pressure difference can be all over the place. So you just have to try these saxophones and check for yourself. But this time, understanding that, yeah, pressure, I need to pay attention to it the way that Sirvalorsax guy was talking about it in his videos. Okay. if you like this kind of stuff, ladies and gentlemen, and you want to support the channel, you can buy me a piece of cake. It's the Buy Me a Coffee company, but it's like a Kickstarter, Patreon type of thing. If you like this kind of stuff, you want to support, you can buy me a piece of cake, and that'll help the channel grow immensely. Obviously, I do have my Altissimo books for alto and tenor available. I have my All Things Diminished book available for all saxophones, and like I've been talking about, I just released my saxophone sound development book, where I talk about these concepts like pressure and tone development, vibrato, the whole bit. So want to get your sound good, go ahead and check that out on PayHip. I got some other stuff that's on there as well. I've been working on Giant Steps again. I pretty much abandoned this song when it just became a ridiculous meme, but I've been getting back into Giant Steps, and I'm working on a how to negotiate your way through the changes of Giant Steps video. You guys are definitely going to want to check that one out. That one will be coming soon. But as for now, that's all I got for you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in. See ya!